So today's topic is, well, today's title is Everyone Loves a Good Report Card. And oh my gosh, that really takes me back to my childhood, Pierre. I was a keener as a kid, and I always looked forward to getting my report card. And I was eager to see a good one because we would be praised and rewarded at home if we had a good one. But looking back and thinking about today's webinar, I realize now that there's a word that doesn't quite fit in my reflection as a child, and that's the word hope. We shouldn't have to hope for a good report card. We should already know what to expect, good or bad. And this is all about today's topic. Of course, everybody loves a good report card. Everybody hopes for one. But what are the roles and responsibilities in assessing employee performance? So this is today's topic. So let me just do a few words of introduction before we really dig into the subject today. If you've attended a few of our webinars, you probably recognize this little bow tie graphic diagram that still needs a bit of tender loving care, but when we talk about employee performance, where does it fit in as far as management and leadership expectation? Well, typically it fits in two of four quadrants. So my supervisors or the board of directors or the DG of my organization expect me to assess employee performance. So, and that's one way of acting responsibly in my organization. They expect me to do employee evaluation. It minimizes the risk, and it's a way of acting responsibly. But even more important than that, I would say that my employees expect evaluation on my part, because most employees hate to um, guess if they're doing a good job or a bad job. So they expect feedback from me. They expect me to assess their performance and to give them a clear picture of what they're doing right and what needs to be improved. So it's an employee expectation as well. And in all organization that succeeds, that are dynamic, there's often three things going on at the same times. We create a culture of collaboration where we are clear about expectations and values. So in other words, we're clear as leaders and managers about how should we behave here in this environment in order to succeed. So being clear about values, behaviors, and those kind of expectations. Another thing that's really going on is the performance piece, the business perspective. So if we know how to behave, then we know what the objectives are in order to be better individuals, better employees. But every time we as employees are improving, the organization in a whole is also improving. And the third part of this diagram is the accountability part, the synergistic governance. And this doesn't only have to do with the board of directors. It's a way of saying that the way we manage the organization is done right. So all these three things should be taken into account when we talk about or when we assess employees. So let's just move along. So why are we doing this webinar today? We're doing this webinar today because evaluating performance is not just about assigning a score, giving giving an A plus on a report card. It should be a powerful tool for motivating, empowering, and developing employees. And that's one of the main goals today. We hope that at the end of this hour that you will see this process as a powerful tool. Why this webinar? Because a successful evaluation is fair, it's transparent, it's engaging, and it's aligned with expectations and the organizational culture. So we will tap into about what does a successful evaluation looks like. It doesn't have to be complicated. It shouldn't take the whole year or a lot of time, but simple and easy to use tools and procedures can easily make it a successful evaluation. And the goal of this webinar is to simply said, transform the performance evaluations into a development tool rather than a dreaded formality where we often say, oh no, I gotta do this. Oh, if I can just get rid of this responsibility. So let's transform a dreadful formality into something that you are eager to do and employees are eager to live as well. Today's agenda, so we have three main topics today. And we will start, Pierre will start with the foundation of it all. And it starts with establishing a culture of accountability. This is where it starts if we want to make it successful and a powerful tool for engaging employees. We'll talk about two very important competencies, mastering coaching and supervision. We'll define performance. How does a successful performance looks like? We'll take a few minutes to clarify who does what, who's responsible for what in that process. So responsibilities of organization, managers, leaders, and employees. And we will end this webinar with three common pitfalls and mostly how to avoid them. So Pierre, you have the mic, culture of accountability. And I think you're on mute.
3 years of good performance. And still, okay, culture of accountability. This is the foundation. Creating a culture of accountability ensures that employees understand that they play a key role in their own performance. Culture of accountability implies that performance evaluation is dynamic and proactive as a process, where employees play an active role in their own development and performance. In this type of culture, employees do not see the process or the evaluation as something they passively undergo. On the contrary, they understand that they are responsible for the grades, the results that they receive. In other words, employees recognize and expect to work harder than their managers to achieve a strong performance review. They know they must be proactive and engaged. Why do employees like a good report card? Maybe it goes without saying, but here we go. Number one, recognition and validation are fundamental needs. We often underestimate how employees need to know that their efforts matter. People don't work just for a paycheck. They also work to have an impact and want to be recognized. I once saw a high performing employee wanted to leave his position, not because they didn't like their job, but because they never received any feedback on their impact. They were doing great work, performing well, but no one ever acknowledged it. A strong performance review isn't just an evaluation, it's a sign that someone sees and appreciates you in what you do. Good performance follows up, sorry, a good performance follow up build trust and engagement. No one wants to be left in the dark, wondering if their work meets expectations. Uncertainty about one's performance is a major source of workplace stress. Imagine taking a course at college or university where you never receive grades or feedback until the final exam. Well, for me, that would be a stressful situation. Same at work. Employees want to know where they stand so they can adjust in real time, not after the fact. Fair and transparent evaluation improves perception of equity and motivation. One of the most frustrating things for an employee is feeling that their evaluation is subjective, biased, or unfair. Nothing is more demotivating than seeing colleagues receive better ratings without clear reason or the understanding why did that person get a 5 and I got a 4. Imagine two employees doing the same exact job, receiving completely different evaluation, as I just pointed out, with no apparent reason. That would be frustrating. When evaluations are clear and based on objective criteria, everyone understands where they stand. Process is no longer a surprise, but something expected and predictable. Keys to establishing a culture of accountability. One key is be transparent about expectations. This reduces uncertainty and gives employee more clarity and control over his own or her own performance. Less uncertainty, more clarity, greater control over one's performance. When employees know exactly what is expected of them, they can better self-assess and adjust their work accordingly. An employee understands their specific objective and evaluation criteria can proactively work towards a strong performance review. Encourage and value initiative. Allow employees to find solutions to the challenges they face. Encouraging and valuing initiative means empowering an employee to find solutions to the challenges they face. When an employee is encouraged to take the initiative and propose solutions, that person will feel more responsible for his or her performance. In a culture of accountability, mistakes are not faults, but opportunities to learn and improve. When employee receives when the employee feels safe to experiment and understand that failure is acceptable, they become more engaged in their development. Someone once told me that even though you hear a lot that making an error is the way to progress, but a mentor told me it's correcting errors that helps you learn. So making an error by itself doesn't mean much. It's correcting the error and to help the employee find solutions that will help them grow and feel important to the organization and empowered.
And I think that's the whole basis of the culture of accountability, because then, Pierre, if I understand correctly, you're accountable for improving yourself. So it's one thing to say, "Oh, I made a mistake. I recognize I didn't do this wrong, or that role or that job I need to do better." So it's more than acknowledging an error or a mistake. It's the what you do with it that really counts.
Yeah, well said. Exactly.
Perfect. So, what are the tools to foster accountability?
Well, we have two to share with you. Um, Self-assessment, a tool for reflection, but not a transfer of responsibility. Self-evaluation allows employees to step back and assess their own performance, helping them better understand where they stand. Yes, the advantage of is that the employee feels more in control of their performance. Another tool is professional development plans. Encourage employees to take ownership of their growth. A development plan is a tool that helps employees identify their strengths, necessary improvements, and the actions they need to take to advance. It sets clear objectives and tracks progress throughout the year. The advantage is that employees can clearly see how to improve their performance, reinforcing accountability and motivation.
Perfect. Nice. So basically, when I hear you talk about culture of accountability, there are tools for sure, but there are essential keys as of being transparent, um, encouraging people to make mistakes and learn from them, and continuous feedback. Super. We'll tag along rapidly. We'll move along with the coaching and supervision because we're having a bit of issues with Slido right now, and it was all over the place with the previous session. So we'll just skip it for this session as well. So coaching and supervision are two competencies that are that really makes a difference when it comes to evaluating employees and avoiding surprises. So the goal here is to be equipped to both support employee success. And that's the whole part about coaching, making sure that you know what is expected, and I'm going to be there and guide you through your work and with the work that you have to do. So that's the fun part. And the other part is to effectively address performance issues, and that's what we call supervision. So addressing difficult issues in regards to performance, behaviors, or attitudes when that is necessary. So coaching versus supervision, why are both necessary? So the key here is all about finding the right balance between the two of them, finding the balance between coaching and supervision. So you might you might ask yourself, well, when should I use coaching? And when is it time to shift to supervision? Well, coaching is usually used to help ensure an employee's success in their responsibilities and projects. So in another word, I'm here, I'm going to coach you, I'm going to guide you, I'm going to answer your question, I'm going to make sure that you understand clearly what the expectations are, who does what, and by when. So it's putting everything in place to help the employee succeed, and then be there afterward and not treat it as a crock pot and hoping for the best, but it's to really be there and supporting the employees in his or her work. So when we do that, when we use a coach approach with situation, it allows employees to gain a better understanding of their strengths and challenges. If you really want to dig into that subject, you got to read um, uh, uh, the advice trap, the advice trap, because the more we tell employees what to do, how to do it, and so on, and or we most, well, not most, but some of the time when we even do it ourselves, we take away that empowerment that employees could have of developing autonomy and problem solving skills. Coaching situations also allow employees to build confidence in their abilities. So at first, they might come and see you and ask for guidance and ask your opinion on such things, but usually, what they're mostly looking for is validation on your part. So, as you validate that they're on the right track, they have good instincts, they're doing a good job, they've done well, it builds confidence over time in their abilities. So, use coaching whenever an employee has the potential to develop and grow. This approach really focuses on building skills, confidence, and autonomy or dependence. Supervision, this is when something really needs to be corrected. It usually involves a more directive approach, often a disciplinary aspect to ensure that expectations are met. But what's important to remember here is to avoid mixing the two at the same time. So I've been using the sandwich model, and I've learned, unfortunately, that it doesn't always work, because when you give good feedback and then you kind of slice in a negative one and you end with a positive one, in my experience, employees have come to understand, she's going to say something nice in order to give me a more difficult feedback. And because she kind of felt guilty about doing so, she's going to end on a positive note. Well, then employees underestimate the positive feedback they get. They don't give it as much credibility because they know you'll be focusing on something that needs a more difficult feedback. So avoid using the two at the same time. When something good is going on, say it. When something needs a more direct approach, use another conversation. So addressing performance issues and managing difficulties. So identify when supervision um, is necessary to address performance gaps, problematic behaviors or unmet expectation. Addressing issues is often more appreciated than we think. How often have I heard myself or colleagues say, gee, that went a lot more well than I had expected. And I think that's the reality in most cases. So the employee in question, well, they usually expect it. And without accountability, one might assume that everything is fine. No news is good news, as we say. But when we do have something to say, the employee in question usually appreciate it more than we imagine. And it's not uncommon to even hear, oh, well, thank you for telling me. I appreciate you being honest with me and things along those lines. The key here is to be clear about what we prioritize when we give difficult feedback. Do we prioritize affection or do we prioritize respect? When we prioritize affection, this is when we use the sandwich or we put our white gloves up to our shoulders and we're almost too tactful because we don't want to hurt the other person. But when we have the courage to address difficult issues, we are more prioritizing respect. Respect from the employee, but respect from the talent around us. Our top performers do expect managers to address underperformance within the team. It's an expectation that we have. They look up to us to do this dirty job. And this is when we often hear, that is why he or she is paid the big bucks. So, two competencies: coach to ensure success and address performance issues when it is necessary. A few competencies to develop in coaching and supervision. Well, for either one, either coaching or supervision, we need to observe what's going on. We need to be present and take an interest in employees' work and provide regular feedback. And this prevents surprises and ensure that employees feel empowered. It's like Pierre said at the beginning of the webinar, no one appreciates bad news. We want to know in advance, and we do not want to guess if we're doing a good job or a bad job. So the only way to give feedback is to observe and be interested in the work of our employees. The other competencies that is interesting here is to use the questioning techniques. Again, if you ever read that book, The Advice Trap, you'll have great questions to ask, and the coaching habit is another good read for that. So instead of telling people what to do or doing it for them, encourage employees to reflect and recognize their own progress, so that is done by asking rather than telling. Ask rather than tell. A third competency is to communicate clearly and manage misunderstandings. We often take for granted that we're on the same page. We often think that, oh my gosh, my team, they're professionals, they know what to do, they're well paid, they should know. Well, we all have different backgrounds, different collaboration styles, different experiences and expertise. So it's normal not to be on the same page all the time. And that's another leadership expectation. Employees expect us to clarify our expectations, to be clear on evaluation criteria, to be clear on the required behavior, what is tolerated and what it is not. And performance goal. So it's important to communicate those as clearly as possible, and when there is a misunderstanding, to address it. Another one is to adapt our approach to each employee, so one size does not fit all. I once had two employees with the same goal, but they learned in completely different ways. One preferred to have each step, a step-by-step explanation very clearly before taking an action, while the other one really learned best through trial and error. So, if you guys have kids at home, if you have two kids or more, you know that you need to have a different approach with one and another approach with another in order to have the same results. It's a bit of the same with adults. I think it's a human needs, not a children needs. Another competencies is to be able to handle difficult conversations tactfully. So this means address performance gaps or behavioral issues without demotivating employees using a factual and solution-oriented approach. I often ask myself when I do this to be tactful, how would I like my employee or my colleague or whoever I'm having the conversation with, how would I like them to feel at the end of the conversation? What would their best takeaways be? If I want them to feel guided, helped, um, coached, skilled, all of these positive feelings, it will help me be more tactful with them. It'll influence the tone, my choice of words, and so on. And another key competency in coaching and supervision is to be able to support skill development. So high expectations, high support, identify learning opportunities or trainings to help employees grow through training, mentoring, or just enriching work experiences. So basically, 6 competencies in coaching and supervision: adapting, having difficult conversation, handling difficult conversations tactfully, supporting training, and so on, and being clear on expectation and giving feedback regularly. All right, module 3, Pierre. What is performance?
Yes, good question. Performance. The goal is to understand that performance evaluation, when done right, is a valuable process for both manager and employees. Defining performance and employee perception. Performance reflects skills, results achieved, and contribution to the organization. Measuring performance is more than just a number, it's an opportunity for recognition and development. It's more than just a number. It's important to say if you've reached 80% of your objectives, let's talk about why. Let's talk about how you got there. Let's talk about what was useful, what wasn't. So the next time you can reach 85%. It's an opportunity to discuss what went well and what could go better. Many factors influence performance. Employees who understand expectations, receive proper support, are more likely to succeed. Transparency with respect to what's expected is a way of motivating the employee, and the employee who wants to be fully engaged to be successful. Employees cannot excel in an unclear or dysfunctional environment. Clear expectation and supportive conditions optimize performance. For example, if the expectation is that I need to collaborate regularly with my colleagues on whatever file, but the work schedule and being present at the office is all over the place. Nobody coordinates who's present. Nobody coordinates when we start to discuss the issues. It's very difficult to excel in that kind of situation. Frequent feedback allows employees to adjust their work continuously rather than waiting for the annual evaluation to find out how they're doing. Feedback should be given as a positive connotation. if the feedback is discouraging or the critiques are negative, or just because my radar says I need to show you what everything you did wrong. That's not the way to do it, of course. If I don't say anything, Michelin said it earlier, no news, good news, even though maybe the performance was not up to par. The
You're
employees
so
does
right.
not know how to respond. Excuse, go ahead.
No, I was going to say you're so right about that one, and I have an example that is ongoing right now in my workplace, and we have a new employee. And when she started, one of the first thing, well, I know that on the first day, I told her, I'm going to give you continuous feedback, and please don't see it as a negative criticism. I really want you to succeed in your new workplace, in your new environment, and in the new task that you're about to tackle and your new responsibilities. So I told her I'm going to give you feedback every day for the first weeks and months of your new job. And her reaction was, oh my gosh, thank you. Thank you so much for doing that. But the thing here is just creating that arrangement from the get go. I'm going to give you feedback in order that you succeed, but not to criticize you or not to just point out your mistakes. So I'm going to give you the good and the bad, but I'm going to give you feedback frequently.
Thank you. Now, factors influencing performance. One common myth about performance evaluation. Evaluation are just about pointing out mistakes. Well, in reality, they should be a tool for development and appreciation. Uh, Unfortunately, the myth is a reality in many places and situations when errors are pointed out only at the moment of the evaluation, as opposed to feedback throughout the year. People have a fear of bad surprises, or once a year, that's when I'll know what I did wrong. That's not feedback. It's just a process just to get rid of it. Um, More conversations during the year, less chances of a surprise during the evaluation. And at that time, evaluation won't take a lot of time because you've been doing it all throughout the year. So not only when it's the formal process that needs to be completed. A good report card doesn't mean being perfect. It means it means having a clear picture of strengths and challenges and understanding how to improve. It's okay to say to the employee, you don't have to be perfect. When you are satisfied or when nothing is satisfactory, the employees will have will see the process as not having any credibility. It's important to explain the marks you give someone or the percentage of success. You have to reiterate why it was successful, what can be done to be, or have a discussion of what can be done to improve. Need to be clear that that the level of satisfactory and your standards are two things that are interconnected. Employee might be disappointed to have a 3 instead of a 5 on his report card, but if your expectation is 3, then that's a very positive outcome, and the employee needs to know.
Good point. Good point. Because everybody wants to do a good job, but let's define what the expectations are and what a good job is at this moment or this year. Perfect. All right. So there are a few responsibilities, Pierre. You want to talk about those responsibilities?
Yes, let's do that. What are the responsibilities? Well, the goal is to clarify how employees and managers can collaborate to ensure that performance evaluations are motivating, fair, and equitable. Notice that we say employees and manager can collaborate. It's not a one-way street. So the
Oops, sorry.
organizational, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, I was just playing with your slide. Sorry.
Okay. Okay. The organization has responsibilities as well. The organizational responsibilities, we have two to share with you. One, provide clear and simple tools and processes so that performance evaluations become a motivating experience rather than a source of stress. Integrate the mechanism for recognition and appreciation. So, of course, mechanism for recognition, sorry, will depend on your organization, your field of where you practice your your expertise. It can be bonuses, it can be career advancement, it could be training, could be anything that fits with your organization and your field expertise. It could be just a certificate saying, well done, um, you've achieved 90% this year as opposed to 85% last year. Great progression. So it doesn't have to be like a bonus, a sal bonus that's like 45% of your salary. The
And I like the
manager's,
first. Sorry,
go
Kian, I
ahead.
just wanted to comment on the first one because that's the one that often hear about. And that's why I think most managers dread the whole process. It's because the organization has implemented a complicated tool and process. It's a 7 to 10
Mm,
page evaluation. There are so many things to do before the evaluation, so many things to do during, so many things to do after. And the challenge that we often like to give our clients is to keep it simple. To keep it simple. And the challenge is can your tool be as efficient and simple as a one or even two pager? Because it goes with the saying, if everything is important, then nothing really is. So if you're trying to put everything in a tool, then of course you're going to dread it. But that's the organizational responsibility because a manager cannot use one tool and simplify it while the other one complicate has a more complicated tool. So I like the organizational responsibility. They got to think about who's using the tool and make it as clear and simple as possible.
Human. Now, the manager responsibilities are twofold. One is to provide continuous feedback to avoid surprises during the evaluation. And remember that contributing does not mean being ultimately responsible. The manager doesn't delegate his or her responsibility for the overall performance. Second one is support employee success. Help them achieve a strong performance review by equipping them with clear expectation, targets, and performance measures. Contributing means setting things in motion for success.
Yeah. And just because we're watching hockey right now, I have this example of the hockey world. It's like a coach, he can have a good game plan. He could have like bought the best hockey tools and gears for his hockey players, best game plan as possible, done a lot of practice. But once the hockey players are on the ice, it's up to them. But the responsibility of the coach or manager was putting things in place so that the players or the employees could perform well.
That's a very good analogy, Michelin.
All right. So,
Okay.
what are the employee responsibilities in all of that?
Oh yeah, sorry. I was stuck on your analogy there. I was just thinking about that. But yeah, it's so good. So the employee responsibilities. As Michelin referred to, the employee needs to take ownership of their development and actively seek feedback. Don't assume that all employees realize that they have these responsibilities. They need to hear it, they need to be told, they need to be reinforced, need to be encouraged. The employee also needs to understand performance criteria to improve their work. So there's another area of dialogue that should be ongoing during the year.
Yeah, and since I worked in a school almost all of my life, this one really speaks to me, Pierre, because it was so important for in my example for teachers to understand their performance criteria. So let's say one of the things they were assessed on was um, um, being responsible or making sure that the students were well behaved, s'occuper du bien-être des élèves, so taking care
The
of the
well-being.
well-being of their students. But that can mean something for you, and it could mean something else for your colleague, and something else completely different for me. So the performance criteria here was things like uh, being accessible and being present for the kids when they got into class each morning. It could be attending to kids' needs, such as when they need extra support to learn and to succeed in math, reading, writing, whatever all the subjects. It can mean being there and coaching kids when they have issues among themselves or little disputes among themselves. But it's to really be able to understand what am I going to base my performance on, performance criteria. So once you know what you know, it's so much more engaging to want to improve and to work on those responsibilities.
So true.
All right. Whoops. Oh, I'm going too fast here. So we're just gonna show you a few pitfalls and how to avoid them with a few tips. So one pitfall is to over evaluate or putting more emphasis on effort instead of results. The risk here is an employee may be highly engaged, but if results do not follow, organizational performance suffers. So let's say that all my employees do really put in the effort in their work, but the results aren't there. Then what are the risks for my organizational performance? Performance, yeah, we do need efforts, but we also need to show results. So the tip here is to recognize effort, but to evaluate mainly based on goal achievement and the added value. So praise the effort, but evaluate the goal or the results. And the impact, well, it'll keep the evaluation process a lot more objective. It'll be aligned with expected results while still acknowledging positive behaviors and emphasis on effort. Another pitfall is making all evaluations or report cards similar to avoid conflict. And the risk here is major for leaders, and it's a loss of credibility. If all employees receive similar ratings, even high performance will doubt their strengths and weaknesses. So if I'm really performing well, but my colleague who's maybe half performing gets the same results, I might question my own strengths and weaknesses. So the tip here is to differentiate evaluations using concrete facts, concrete observations, and specific examples to justify the employee's performance. And the impact will be positive. We'll have greater credibility and a real motivator, especially for top performers. I want to say for every employees, but especially for our performers. And the last but not least, pitfall number 3 is to be misaligned between organizational values and evaluations. So let's say that an organization values initiative, but penalizes mistakes when employees take risk. It then creates confusion and a loss of trust in the evaluation process. So if I keep saying it's okay if you if I want you guys to be to take initiative when you see a problem. But when I do take initiative, I make a mistakes and then I'm penalized for it on my evaluation. It's sending mixed messages. So the tip is to align evaluations with values and expected behaviors, and include a section even in your form which reinforces the organizational values. So often we evaluate or we assess the performance part only, the roles, the responsibilities, and the task. But when we put a few values, we integrate a few values in our assessment forms, then we can actually assess performance and assess behavior. The impact, stronger coherence and adherence to company values. Pierre, do you have any comments to add to either any one of the modules or the pitfalls that we've just talked about?
I just add that, and we've said this all over, and I think it's worthwhile repeating, feedback throughout the year, recognition throughout the year, pointing out where things can improve, and helping support the employee to improve will make the whole evaluation process, the process itself, the form they have to fill out, secondary to the process. It's the formal, you have to close the loop, but it's the ongoing conversation that really will help motivate the employee, understand where they stand in the organization, and be a source of motivation as opposed to a source of frustration or anxiety.
Absolutely. And when we talk about clear expectations and just being clear in general, I can't help to think about the importance of having a good meeting structure in the organization. So what does that mean? Like, how are our meetings within the organization? Do we have one-on-ones? If so, what do we do during that 10 or 15-minute one-on-one with our employees? Personal team meetings, what do we do, what don't we do, and all the other types of meeting, because those are really, really great opportunity to give feedback. It doesn't always have to be one-on-one, especially praise. Don't don't we all love being praised all the time,
Yes.
privately and even in front of others? So good point, good point. So we'll end on that note. We have two webinars coming up. One is actually tonight at 7. So if you're new on the board, this one might interest you. So it's called I'm New on the Board. What do I need to know? So basic skills for new board members. And the other one has to do with change management, triggers for change, innovating without burning out, without me burning out and without burning out my team. So that is on Tuesday, March 4th at 1 p.m. Yeah, thanks for being here. If you guys have any HR questions, Pierre is our guy, so don't be afraid. Go on our website and book a time with him to chat about your needs or your challenges. And otherwise, it was nice having you on this webinar today. Hope you enjoyed it, guys. See you soon.
Thank you all. Goodbye.